Hey, what is going on? Welcome back to the vlog. It is a Monday afternoon up here at Orange City Racing and Card Club, and they're doing some sort of ridiculous high hand promotion. So this place should be packed. It's 11:30 in the morning, and there's already 7 tables of 1-2 running and a wait list. So excited to go in there and mix it up. I feel like I'm laser focused this morning, decked out in the 7 card flush merch. If you enjoy, like, subscribe, let's get to it.
I've been at the table for about 40 minutes now, and outside of an ace-jack hand that got no action, I've been pretty card dead. I've also had the chance to notice that this is a super tight and passive table. Most opening raises are to $6 and $8, and not many hands have gone past the turn, so I'm not sure what this means for our afternoon. In this first hand, we're in the hijack, and we look down at 6-7 offsuit. We see a limp from early position before the action gets to me and I bump it up to $10. We see a call from the button as well as under the gun, so we're off to the flop 3 ways.
Mix them all up.
The flop is 5-8-9 with 2 spades. Yep, I flopped it. So now the question is, how do I get value without scaring everybody off? Under the gun checks it over to me, and I decide to go ahead and start with a check, looking for the button to take the lead on betting, but he checks behind. The turn is a 5 of clubs, so it pairs the board. Once again, under the gun checks to me, and now it's time to start building a pot, so I bet $15. We see a fold from the button. Under the gun starts thinking, and then he folds. This is going to be a long afternoon.
Taking my wife to the
We're in +1 this time, and we look down at pocket 7s. We see a limp from under the gun, and with the action on me, I bump it up to $10. The button, the small blind, and under the gun all make the call, so we're off to a flop multi-way. Flop is queen 6 with 2 hearts, so not the greatest flop here. When it checks to me, I decide to go ahead and continue though and tell the story that I have a queen, and I bet $25. Under the gun is the only caller, and this guy just cracked his wife's aces with king 8 offsuit, so now I'm starting to wonder if he has a queen here. The turn is a 3 of spades. My opponent checks it to me, and I decide to go ahead and slow down and check behind. The river is a 5 of clubs, and once again it checks to me, and not really sure where I stand in this hand and thinking that I'm probably only getting called by better, I decide to check as well. My opponent very confidently flips over ace-6, so we win this one, but it's not the best hand I've ever played. We're in the cutoff and we look down at ace-10 offsuit. We see an open from under the gun to $6 before it folds to me. I consider putting in a 3-bet, and if I were suited, I'm almost positive I would, but in this instance, I elect to just call. We're off to a flop heads up. The flop is 9-jack-king with 2 hearts, so I flop myself a gut shot straight draw and a backdoor flush draw. Under the gun bets $10, and I decide that's a pretty good price to continue, so I call. We're off to a turn. The turn's a 3 of hearts, so now I've picked up a flush draw. I've got a little bit more equity here. Under the gun fires again, and he fires for 25. And I'm kind of stuck between raising and calling. Raising is going to force all non-made hands to make a tough decision. However, if I raise, I'll only have about $100 behind, so it kind of makes for weird stack to pot ratios at the river. So instead, I elect to just call. We're off to the river. The river is a 5 of clubs, so I've completely bricked out. My opponent stares me down, and then he elects to bet, and it's a really weird size. He bets $30 and only leaves himself $35 behind. All I can really beat is a bluff here, and nobody at this table is capable of running one. I'm getting a pretty good price to call, but there's no way he runs this bluff for 3 streets, so I elect to fold. My opponent flips over 10-8 of spades, so he got me to fold the winner here at a table that I didn't think anybody was capable of running a 3-street bluff at. Nice hand, sir. We add on for $50.
Hey guys, don't forget, we're having a meetup game this Saturday, August 20th at Orange City Racing and Card Club. It's at 1 p.m. Kyle Fischel and I are going to run a 1-3 no limit with a $10 bomb pot every dealer chain. So come out, mix it up, try to make episode 50. Now, back into the poker.
We're in the cutoff this time, and we look down at pocket jacks. We see an open from under the gun to $7. The action folds around to me, and I put in the 3-bet to $21. Under the gun is the only caller, so we're off to a flop heads up. The flop is 4-7 queen, so while there's a card that's an over to my pair, probably a pretty safe flop here. My opponent checks to me and I fire off for $35, and he pretty quickly folds. There was kind of a weird hand here where I opened with king-jack offsuit and got 1 caller. The flop was king high. I went to double check my hand and then grabbed some chips to bet, and I accidentally flipped over my king with my watch band, so I'm pretty exposed here. Then I get the worst run out ever of a 3 on the turn and a 4 on the river, giving any ace a straight. My opponent did bet $10 on the turn, which I called, and he bet 15 on the river. He announces that I'm beat, but I've got to keep this guy honest and call, so I do, and he shows me king 2 for 2 pair. We add on for $75 more. We are in the big blind this time, and we look down at pocket aces. We see a limp from under the gun before an early position player bumps it up to $8. We get a call out of the hijack before it folds to me, and I re-raise to $27. Under the gun ends up being the only caller, and she only has about $40 behind, but we'll see a flop heads up. The flop is king 9-9, so I think it's pretty safe here. I bet out $40 to put her all in, and she folds pretty quickly.
Hello.
We're under the gun this time, and we look down at ace 10 of clubs. I open the action for $12. We see calls from +1 and the small blind, so we'll see a flop 3 ways. The flop is 10-5-5 with 1 club, so a flop top pair and a backdoor flush draw. I continue on for $20, but both my opponents fold. I've had a bunch of these hands where I have a premium holding and I either get no action pre-flop or no action post-flop. However, all these tiny pots have me back to about even 2.5 hours in. We're in the hijack this time, and we look down at king queen of diamonds. There's a call from early position before the low jack raises to $6. When the action gets to me, I put in a 3-bet, but I go really large here for some reason, and I raise to $30. We see a call from the big blind. Everybody else folds, so we're off to a flop heads up. The flop is deuce 6-8 with 2 diamonds, so a pretty good flop here with a flush draw and 2 overs. It checks to me, and I continue on for $40. My opponent then shoves all in for $46 total. Had I known that was all he had in his stack, I would have done it for him. Obviously, I call it here. The turn is an 8 of clubs, and the river is a 6 of diamonds. We roll it over, and we both have flushes. He has 3-4 of diamonds. Not sure what he's doing in a 3-bet pot out of position with 3-4, but regardless, I'm going to win. I sat at this table for about another 30 minutes, and I swear it was getting worse. I hate giving up the optimal vlogging angle and vlogging seat, but I take my chances and I move to a table where my buddy Anthony is playing at. In the third hand we're dealt since sitting down, we're straddling from the button and we wake up with aces here. It folds around to +1, who bumps it up to $15, folds all the way around to me, and I put in the 3-bet to $45. +1 makes the call, so we're off to a flop heads up. The flop is king high here. It's pretty safe. It checks to me, and I continue on for $75, but my opponent folds. The very next hand, we're in the cutoff, and we look down again at pocket aces. We see a call from an early position player before the action gets to me, and I bump it up to $15. We see calls from the button, the small blind, and the early position limper, so we're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is king jack 7 rainbow, so again, another really good flop for aces here. Anthony in early position bets out for $17. He has about $110 behind, and I ask him because if I think anybody's going to wake up with a hand here, it's going to be him. So when the action gets to me, I bump it up to $75, a little bit weary of a hand like king jack. Action moves on to the button, and he jams for $215 total.
All in.
It folds back to me, and it's never been more obvious that I'm up against 2 pair, but I'm not good enough to fold here, so I call. The turn is a 7 of spades, pairs the board and now counterfeits king jack, and the river is a 10 of clubs. I roll it over, and he did in fact have king jack offsuit, so I got lucky, but now the stack looks nice and healthy. We're in the cutoff this time, and we look down at 6-7 offsuit. Anthony in under the gun limps, folds all the way around to me, and I limp as well. With the action on the button, he bumps it up to $10. The small blind, under the gun, and I all make the call, so we're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is 3-4-7 with 2 clubs, so a flop top pair and a gut shot here. It checks over to me, and I fire out for $20. The button snaps me off. Action on the small blind, and then he decides to call as well. Anthony's the only one that doesn't. We're off to a turn 3 ways. The turn is a 7 of spades, so now I've improved to trips. I bet out for $45. I'm doing this for value against any other hands like straight draws or flush draws, and we get a fold from the button. So I think the hand is over, and I go to muck my cards. Then I'm informed the small blind's still in it.
Yeah, he's still in.
There you go. That's going to make the vlog.
The small blind does eventually make the call, so we're off to the river. The river is an 8 of spades, so the flush missed and 5-6 was already way in the lead, so I think it's actually a pretty good card here. I bet out for $70. It's probably a little bit on the small side. Perhaps it can appear as a blocker bet with an overpair and induce a raise of some sort. My opponent thinks about it and he eventually calls. I roll it over and he shows pocket 10, so we win this one. So the $70 river bet may have actually been just the right size against a hand like pocket 10s. We're in the cutoff, and guys, I'm not kidding. For the 4th time today, we look down at pocket aces. We see +2 and the low jack both call. When the action gets to me, I bump it up to $15. The small blind, the big blind, +1, and the low jack all call, so we're off to a flop like a million ways. The flop is deuce 3-7, so about as good of a flop as you can get with aces 5 ways. It checks to me, and I fire out for $65. The small blind is the only caller, so we'll go to a turn heads up. The turn is a jack of hearts. I don't really expect that to change anything, but my opponent takes the betting lead and he bets $50 with about $80 behind. Now I'm kind of worried that I may have run into pocket 7s, but why flat here and risk not knowing where I'm at on certain rivers? So instead, I jam. I don't get snap called, so now I think I'm actually way ahead. My opponent, after tanking for a bit, eventually makes the call, so we'll see a river. The river is a 6 of hearts. I show my hand, and he looks pretty mad, and he mucks, so we scoop. Now I've got a little over 1K in my stack.
That's 30.
In the final hand of the night, we're in the low jack, and we look down at a hand that you guys hate when I play, Queen 10 offsuit. There are 2 early position callers before the action gets to me. What am I going to do? I'm going to raise, bump it up to $15. The button is the only caller, so we'll go to a flop out of position heads up. The flop is 10-10-4, so I flop trips here. I check looking for my opponent to bet, but he slows down and he checks behind. The turn is a 9 of hearts, so it brings in a flush draw, and now I've got to start building a pot, so I bet out for $30. With the action on my opponent, he then shoves for $202 total. So, back on me, and I'm really not sure what he could be doing this with. Maybe some sort of an overpair, maybe a flush draw. I'm not really sure. I don't think he would bet a hand like 4's full or even 9's full. Can I really lay down trips here? I eventually end up making the call. The river is a good one. It's a 9 of diamonds and it pairs the board. This guy is a notorious slow roller at Orange City. He slow rolled Anthony 3 times in one night a couple weeks ago, so I'm going to make him show his hand first. He shows me a jack of hearts. I wait and signal for him to flip the other one over, and it's a sad card. It's an 8 of hearts, giving him a vlog favorite jack 8 suited. He turned the straight and he picked up a flush draw, so there was nothing he could do there. I did not play this hand very well, and it became really apparent after I typed the notes out, so I decided to go ahead and rack it up and call it a night and book a win.
All right, so we'll wrap that one up. That was a weird session. Did not have the greatest start. Thought I may have been stuck at the worst table to ever exist in the history of poker, but I don't like giving up that end seat because I can see all the action. Then I don't have to take such accurate notes. I can just go back and rewatch the footage. But I made the switch and I was rewarded with aces 3 times. And I think I won with all 3 of them. So really a pretty good day. Into the game for $325, out for $1,200 even. So pretty big win here. Needed that one. If you enjoy, like and subscribe. See you next time.
If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more poker content. And you can follow me on Instagram at 7cardflushpoker.